I am Vinnie Tortorich, folks. Your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed, just like the guy on the other mic. This guy's been on the show before. He was an Army captain, and he did something kind of weird. Well, he didn't do anything. Something kind of weird happened to him. He got childhood diabetes as an adult. That's right. He did the almost impossible. He got type 1 diabetes as an adult. Most people, they used to just call it childhood. And we'll ask him about that when we bring him on. They used to call it childhood diabetes because most people figured out type 1 before they made it to their 10th birthday, but not anymore. This guy figured it out when he was a captain in the Army. He got well, it was an honorable discharge, I guess that's the way you would say that, and decided, you know what, I don't like what's going on here, so I'm going to go and get a doctorate in naturopathic medicine. And then after that, he went, not good enough, need to become a nutritionist. And I fell in love with this guy. No, not like that. But I fell in love with his work on the internet because he's out there on Twitter every night doing what I'm doing, where we're basically yelling into a black hole and hoping that someone will hear us somewhere. I'm talking about none other than Dr. Ryan Attar. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing great, Vinny. Thanks for having me back here.
Hey, man, look, I know we're getting close to the holidays and everything, so thank you for coming on tonight. It means a lot to me. Did I get all of that right? I mean,
yeah, you summed it all up. Yeah, I used to be in the Army. I never thought I would be in the health field. I wasn't in the health field in the military. But like you said, I came down with type 1 diabetes, which we used to call juvenile diabetes, but it's an autoimmune disease. Your immune system attacks the pancreas and destroys the cells that make insulin, and I no longer make insulin. And it can happen at any age. And in fact, it happens about 50% of the time above age 18 and 50% below 18. I can't, type 1 diabetic, so that means I'm insulin dependent and got out. I'm disciplined. I'm had no, preconceived ideas about nutrition before all of this, but I'll do whatever my doctors say is best. But when I got out and listened to them, they don't do what's best. And I started figuring things out on my own. I got really, really good control of my blood sugars, so much so that at one point I get my healthcare at the VA. Mm-hmm. And at one point I got a letter from the VA saying, we reviewed your lab work and it appears your condition has resolved and you no longer need our services. Because most type 1 diabetics have very high blood sugars, very high A1Cs.
Right.
If there are, diabetics, especially type 1 diabetics out there listening, they know what these numbers range from, this A1C number. For the past decade, my A1C has been under 5. My last one was 4.6, which is very well controlled even for a non-diabetic, but it's rare in the type 1 world. So yeah, I started getting control like that, and got frustrated because not only were my doctors not helping me achieve this, when I would go back to them and be like proud of my success, they wouldn't care. In fact, they would tell me you're kind of wasting your time and you should eat the food you want to eat and let your numbers go higher because there's no point, which is absolutely not true. But so I went back to school to do it myself, and here I am now.
Are you familiar with the McKenzies, particularly Bethany McKenzie?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very good friends of mine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Her story is so crazy that I put them in my first documentary.
Yes. Yep. And which inspired her to make her documentary.
Well, here's the deal. She was making a documentary, and she had a really nice long, it's almost too long to call it a sizzle reel. She had about 20 or 30 minutes. And the woman just wrote to me one night and she goes, hey, I see that you're going ahead with your documentary. We're doing one. And what do you think? And I was thinking, all right, let me just see what these people have. She's up in South Dakota, but they can't possibly. I was crying. I was literally, I had to look, I don't cry unless it's Brian's song. Okay. I'm watching this and I got tears in my eyes because of what the medical community was trying. And everyone thinks that, and we'll talk about that. Everyone thinks I'm down on the medical community. They wanted this woman to go get help. They wanted Bethany to go get help. Let me tell the story to the audience very fast. Bethany, loving mother, she and her husband go out to dinner one night. They come home and their kid, and by the way, Bethany's husband is a surgeon, guy's an MD. And somehow they come home and the kid is like screwed up somehow. Like they can't figure it out. His name is River. And they find out the night, they rush him to the hospital and the whole thing. They get called in the next day and they find out that River is type 1 diabetic, right? Exactly what parents don't want to hear. So they're doing, she was a nurse at one time. He's a doctor. They're doing everything to try to figure out the best way to take care of their kid. And they're going to all of these clinics and talking to these T1 doctors and all this stuff. And their life became, and you tell me, Ryan, I think you would be better to me. It became a living hell of trying to do the teeter-totter between sugar and injecting this kid with insulin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That's what always happens with type 1 diabetes. And, we're different than type 2 diabetics, which are, insulin resistant and, they can manage their diabetes with diet alone often. With a type 1, we have to juggle injecting and dosing insulin. And as soon as you start even doing a moderate amount of carbs, you're balancing these high doses of insulin with these high number of carbs, and you're just riding a roller coaster of up and down with blood sugars. And intuitively you would think, hey, let's cut the carbs, but it's even to this day, it's tougher to get doctors on board, especially for a kid, to cut the carbs out. But yeah, Bethany, fought against these doctors not wanting that. And, River's a phenomenal kid. He's a teenager and bright and incredible athlete. He's like a nationally ranked tennis player.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
but here's the deal. Bethany, and I've heard this from a lot of type 1 parents. They say the biggest nightmare is going to bed and wondering if your child will be alive in the morning. Can you imagine? Every night going to bed wondering if your child will be alive. And, they do everything. She's waking up in the night. She's got stuff, the insulin bolus and ready to rock and roll if they need it. This goes on. And then one night while, when they had an event, she went on the internet and started reading how, and she ran across the low carb diet and started talking to me. It wasn't like she read something and then started doing it. She started talking to people online and going, wait, you're doing, it's like, yeah, if you do this, you can use the slow acting insulin. I'm going to let you explain what that is.
Yep.
This is this newfangled stuff that costs a shit ton of money. You can use the slow acting stuff. It works better in that situation, and on and on and on. She starts doing this and it's working like a charm. So the next time she went in to see the doctor, and folks, this is what you have to understand about the medical community. She walks in and thinks the doctor is going to start throwing confetti around. She goes, Doc, I figured this out. My kid is on the other insulin now, the cheap stuff, the stuff that it works better and he's not taking as much, and on and on and on. They wanted to call the cops on this woman. I'm not being funny here, Ryan.
Yeah, I know.
They wanted to have her see, and I think the only reason they didn't have her committed was because her husband's a doctor.
Yeah.
Right? There was like a layer of, well, you're the wife of a doctor. So, listen, you got to go get your shit straight, or we're going to have to call Child Protective Services on you. This is a real story I'm telling. Explain the difference. Pick it up from there, Ryan, if you can.
Yeah, and this story is not just unique to Bethany. This happens to a lot of type 1 parents who put their kid on a low carb diet, and a lot of times the best endocrinologist for these parents are the one that just does nothing, that doesn't care, doesn't give you any support, that just signs the prescriptions and you're done. But often they discourage these parents from doing that. So myself, Bethany, and those of us doing this, we're following the method of Dr. Richard Bernstein, who's an 89-year-old type 1 diabetic. He's had type 1 diabetes since he was 12.
Yeah.
He's still in practice. He's as healthy as any human could be at his age of 89, healthier than his peers, for sure, healthier than his peers. And and he's the diabetic. And so he came up with this method to use low carb to manage type 1 diabetes. And along with the low carb diet, it's important that we use this milder insulin, because the trend in insulin medications is more and more rapid insulin. So they have all different kinds of injectable rapid, but now they even have inhaled insulin it goes right into your lungs, into your bloodstream, because it's to cater towards the majority of people who are following a high carb diet, a standard American diet. And yeah, there's this older insulin called regular insulin, R insulin, and they sell it over the counter at Walmart, and that's what most of us do. We just go and buy it over the counter, and you use this because protein requires a little bit of insulin for us. It's very mild, and so it's not something to be afraid of, but it's something that's easily managed with this mild insulin. If you were to eat a big protein meal and take the rapid insulins, that insulin starts working before your food does, and you can potentially go low, and then the protein's digesting later and you go high, and it's not a good matchup. But the regular insulin matches very, very well, and it's kind of an essential part of managing type 1 diabetes with a low carb diet.
Yeah. And by the way, you said you could get the stuff off of prescription at Walmart.
Yep.
Yep. Listen to that. Listen to what that means, right? It's very inexpensive. You can get it at Walmart. You don't need a prescription, and you can live a normal life.
It's like 30 or 40 bucks for a vial of it at Walmart. It's very cheap, and that vial will last me like a month or two. So it's very reasonable.
So about 20 bucks a month. That's what Bethany told me. She goes,
yeah,
you go from paying thousands through insurance to paying 20 bucks a month. But for whatever reason, they want everyone to go through insurance and pay thousands. I'm saying thousands. Do I have that wrong, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean the insulin prices are all over the place, and it's so strange too. I once took a prescription for this regular insulin, the stuff you can get without a prescription at Walmart. I took it to a regular pharmacy. I'm like, why not have my insurance pay this if it's if they can? And the copay at the regular pharmacy was the same as the cash price flat out for it at Walmart. And so say it was like $50 at Walmart, it was like a $50 copay, and then the total price was like $150 at the pharmacy. It didn't make any sense. Like, I can just go buy this cash. Why is the insurance jacking up the price like that? But yeah, that's how it is.
That's a different conversation for a different day.
Yeah.
It really is. It's really scary what they're able to do until people like you start, making noise, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Speaking of making noise, I'm going to do a quick ad here, and I want to talk about some of the noise you make out there and why you're, like me, one of the most. By the way, I'll ask you this. Let me just do this ad. Folks, Villa Capelli. If you take Villa Capelli, it's the only fruit juice that a type 1 diabetes person should be taking, because Villa Capelli olive oil will cause zero insulin spike in any way, shape, or form, because it's just oil, right? So Villa Capelli, best olive oil on the planet. So why do I say it's the best olive oil? Well, it's kind of simple. In this country, we're allowed to cut olive oil up to 40% and still call it 100% pure olive oil. Not at Villa Capelli. Villa Capelli gives you 100% pure olive oil every single time. It's all we use here at the house. It's all Anna Vocino uses over at Eat Happy Kitchen. I use it in my vitamin D supplement over at purevitaminclub.com, because I don't want people ingesting anything except honest to goodness, good stuff. That doesn't make sense. At any rate, Villa Capelli, you want to save 10%, put in promo code Vinnie, Vinnie, 10%, and you will save that every single time. It's not just the first time. Every time you go back, 10%. If you spend more than $125 after the discount, and if you're buying 3-liter tins, that's easy to do, you'll get the shipping for free. So go to Villa Capelli. There's all kinds of ways to save. Promo code Vinnie, VINNIE. We're talking to Dr. Ryan Attar, and this guy always brings the goods. Ryan, I'm going to be honest. I hate whenever your people bring me into a conversation on Twitter because then I'm caught in that vortex until it goes away. And sometimes it doesn't go away for days.
Yeah.
Right? The attacks come from everywhere. Why the hate? What's going on there? Why would anyone look at you and go, we don't want to be on this guy's side? Just like me, you have a big audience. But why would some people not want to be on your side?
Well, there's a lot of pushback by the medical industry. But there's also pushback from other type 1 diabetics who I don't know why. I mean, it's like a jealousy thing. It's like they're not doing well, and they want to see everyone not doing well, and they don't like seeing people succeed and be healthy. And yeah, it's a weird environment. But yeah, there's a lot of pushback by the medical industry and places like the American Diabetes Association, or there's like zero engagement when we bring up a lot of issues, and they don't defend themselves. They don't, answer things that we bring up. And yeah, that's which is kind of sad too.
So what's the latest thing? There was a thing that came out
Yeah.
just a while back, and that's why I wrote to you and said, hey, time to come back on. What's going on there?
The American Diabetes Association put out their standards of care, which they do every year. A couple years ago, they had something good in there, which was to include low carb diets as a acceptable way to manage type 2 diabetes, not type 1, but type 2, and only in adults, not children. So sometimes there's positive things in it. I haven't, it's a long 400-page document, I think, and I haven't read through it. But what I did when I got the full text of it, I Control F to see how many times different terms came up, right? And so I Control F low carb, keto, low carbohydrate, as many different ways I could kind of, and between 4 and 14 times they bring up a low carb diet. Okay. I searched GLP-1, and GLP-1 is what Ozempic is. This is the famous drug that doctors are obsessed with right now, and people are obsessed with, and you can't even get it because it's selling out and they can't keep up. They mentioned GLP-1 medications 169 times in that standards of care versus 4 to 14 times and I searched other diets. I'm biased towards a low carb diet.
Right.
Vegan diet was mentioned twice. Vegetarian diet was mentioned 4 times. Mediterranean diet, I think, was 14 times. So clearly there's a lot more emphasis on medications than
drugs. Yeah.
Than diets, and which is insane. And the whole GLP meds I think are absolutely insane too. And I don't like them. I'm not a fan of them. And you lose weight when you take them. They work, but you lose lean mass too. You lose bone density and muscle mass as well, which is not good, which is really bad for you. And I don't know how much you know about these medications, but they work on this hormone GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1. And that hormone has effects on our satiety. It makes us feel full. It makes us it slows down digestion. It has some effects on blood sugars too. And I actually experiment. I got a prescription of this a while back, almost a year ago, because I wanted to see, like, independent of the weight loss thing, if it would have an effect on my blood sugars and how much insulin I needed.
Right.
And I took it in a relatively low dose, And it was the worst. It's like a once a week dose. It was the worst week of my life. Like my stomach was awful feeling. Like I couldn't eat anything.
Brian, which one did you take? Which version?
I took Trulicity.
Okay.
Trulicity.
So let me tell you what I know. And I only know this because I talked to people like Ben Bigman and all these doctors. And Ben Bigman was there at the beginning when they were working on these drugs, right? Dr. Ben Bigman.
Mhm.
And he was telling me, he was like, look, these things, he on this podcast not very long ago, he goes, these things are just not good. As a matter of fact, I have a new documentary coming out early this coming year in 2024. And even though it's not about GLP-1s, I had been way in during that
Mm.
documentary because, it's such a hot topic right now that I wanted to throw that into a place where a lot of people are going to see it. And he talked about it. He said, look, depending on the type you're taking, yeah, and he talked about, and I've done Instagrams on the bone loss, the muscle loss, and everyone jumps on me whenever I do this. They'll say, well, yeah, if you lose weight naturally, you'll lose 20%. Yeah, you'll lose 15 or 20% muscle. If you weigh 400 pounds and we could get you into a healthy weight of, say, 200 pounds, we've taken 200 pounds off of you, and only 15 or 20% of that was muscle,
Mm.
right? And by the way, if you exercise, you can easily gain that back. Not easily, but you could gain it back.
Yeah.
With these GLP-1s, depending on which one you're taking, you can lose at least 50% of your muscle fiber, if not more. And with that, you're going to take soft tissue and, as you said, bone. So I asked Bigman about this, and he agreed that that was the truth. And then he said something that almost made me throw up. He goes, Wegovy is the one with the highest amount of GLP-1, with the drug in it, the Wegovy version
Mhm.
of it. And he said, what happens is it slows down digestion so much that the food just sits in your stomach, whatever you eat, and it becomes putrid.
Yeah.
Does that sound healthy to anyone?
Yeah.
Anyone?
It's
My
awful.
understanding is people will burp and it'll smell like sewer,
I,
like
it,
like
it was nasty when I can attest to that. Um, and I couldn't eat. I couldn't get my protein in. Like I wanted to eat. I wanted to have my protein, my daily amount of protein that I need and help, I need for the gym and I need for maintaining lean mass. And I could not. It's funny, the tail end of this week of me taking that, I went to South Dakota for Bethany has her yearly conference.
yeah.
And the first night I arrived, I went out to dinner with her and I got like a bunless burger, and I can eat like 4 or 5 burger patties easy.
Oh,
It's nothing, and I might still be hungry. I ate half of that bunless burger, and my stomach was full, and they couldn't believe like me sitting there like I couldn't eat, and like it's crazy. So if you're if you're overweight, you're gonna lose weight on this drug, but you're not gonna be eating anything. You're not gonna be eating the protein either. The funny thing here is that eating protein works on that same hormone, that GLP hormone. When you eat a big
right.
protein meal, that feeling of really fullness, that you don't you're satiated even after that meal for a long period of time. That's a GLP-1 hormone working naturally in our body as it's supposed to from eating protein. And yeah, and if people had if their doctors were just promoting lifting weights and eating more protein, they perhaps wouldn't be needing these medications.
Well, you're speaking good sense, right? And it's almost like they're telling us the opposite now. And, people go, they go, Vinny, you hate the medical community. No, I hate the selling of medicine. The fact that they're selling drugs, this is legalized drug pushing, at this point. I mean, I told a story on this podcast, Ryan, long before you listened to it. It was one of the first 50 shows I did over 11 years ago, maybe 12 years ago now. I can't remember. And I went back to my hometown, and there was a little get together on Friday night. All these people, the school teachers, this, that, and the whole thing, they all get together in someone's yard, and everyone brings pizza and daiquiris and all this stuff, and they just let loose, right? And I heard that this was going on. this can only happen in Louisiana where everything's a party. And I just happened to be talking to my mom and I said, how's Lori and Will? She goes, oh, they're all getting together. You should go over there. So I stopped over and I ran into kids that I hadn't seen since I graduated high school. Now, this is now 30 some odd years later. I didn't recognize, I
Mm.
recognize some of them. I recognize my relatives because I see them at Christmas. But most of these people were morbidly obese, right? And just lovely people. And I was meeting their wives and in some cases meeting the husbands and all this kind of stuff. And at some point, everyone, not everyone, but most people that walked up to me to have a private conversation said, man, you've really kept it together. You're in really good shape. It must be all that exercise you do. And I go, well, it's exercise and I eat right and the whole thing. And then it would be, so how many medications are you on? And I was plus 50 at the time. I was like maybe 51 or 52. I said, what are you talking about? It's like, yeah, how many, like, what do you take? And I'm like, what do you mean, what do I take? It's like medications. And I said, I'm not on any medications. I mean, every now and then if I get a headache, I might take an Advil. I mean, is that what you're talking about? No. How many medications you take on a daily basis? And I said, none. And that guy called another guy, hey, come here. Come here. Vinnie, tell him what you just told me. I don't take any medication. That's not possible. You're 52. You're not taking any medications. By the way, I'm 61 now.
Mm.
Guess how many medications I'm on?
I'd bet it's still zero.
It's zero.
Yeah.
I, you know, my wife, 62, zero medication. I mean, what are we beating some kind of lottery? Are we special? I don't think so. Right? But this is how the world lives.
Yeah.
On medication. And some of these people admitted to me 5, 6, 7 medications. My understanding now, Ryan, is that people are on 10 and 12 medications,
Yeah.
and sometimes they're on 2 and 3 GLP-1s stacked on top. What's that all about?
Yeah. And I mean, the effects wear off too. So you have to keep increasing that dose. And, I mean, you can't go off of it because your appetite's going to come back and you're going to go back to your old ways of eating and gain weight. And, yeah, I don't know why someone would want to be on this long term or any medication that they don't have to be on when you can do it through diet and lifestyle, especially, weight and blood sugars.
But what you just said is not sexy, right?
Yeah.
And I always make this point whenever I go to parties, especially when I still lived in Hollywood and I was working with the Hollywood elite. Everyone knew who I was and what I did. And I'd go to a party and they would go, hey, pretend, as everyone does this as if they came up with this idea, pretend I have a movie in 6 weeks. How would you take 20 pounds off of me? And I would go, well, we would have to start working out every day, but you would have to stop eating any kind of sugar, any kind of grains. And they go, well, I can't do that. And I was like, just now you told me that you wanted to be in a movie in 6 weeks. What would I have a starlet do? Or an actress who just had a baby now has to be in an action film. What would I have that person do? I just told you we're going to exercise every day and we're coming off of all sugars and all grains. Now, if you're not going to do that, it ain't going to happen.
It's crazy how addictive processed food, but just carbs in general are. And it's as strong as an addiction as anything, as alcohol, as drugs, as gambling, whatever. And how do we deal with every other addiction? We every single addiction we deal with abstinence, right? You don't tell an alcoholic, okay, we're just going to do, instead of 5 beers a night, we're going to do 2 beers. No, it's 0, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason with food addiction, we think moderation works, and it's just torturing people. You're not going to ever get over it unless you just completely abstain. And it's easier than people think too. Once you change out your diet and you're eating these very satiating, filling foods, and you can overcome that addiction pretty easily if you get to that point.
So this guy over at the ADA that you're always yelling about, let's talk about him. You can mention him by name on this show, please.
Dr. Bob,
Yeah.
their chief medical and
Gabbay,
Bob Gabbay, yeah.
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 But go on.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's been their science officer, I don't know, over a year, I think. And I call out everything. My problems with the ADA, and he's their chief science officer. So, if I'm criticizing something, you think he would jump in and tell me I'm wrong. Show me what your science says, but he doesn't even respond or anything like that. I've posted dozens and dozens of recipes from the ADA's own website, and I always tag Dr. Bob. And their recipe site is absolutely awful, and it has not only high carb foods, which I don't point out the high carb foods on their website because not some people have arguments that a low fat diet is better, a vegetarian diet, vegan diet. That's a whole nother debate. I point out on their website the recipes that have added sugar. There's literally recipes on the American Diabetes Association's website that have added sugar, and everyone agrees that that's bad, no matter what diet you're following. There's no one that says a diabetic should have added sugar. And so I point out dozens and dozens of those, and never hear anything from him. He had a video maybe a year and a half ago where he was eating breakfast, and it's an omelet, and he held the hash browns and toast. So he's just having a low carb breakfast. The guy's overweight himself, and obviously he recognizes that he needs to make those changes. And on this video on Twitter, he's saying that he's making a healthy choice here. He's cutting out the bread, and he's like, healthy choices like this are simple, and you can take small steps and do that. Great, Dr. Bob. I'm glad you're doing that, but your own organization doesn't promote this same diet that you're using for yourself, and that's just awful that you're the chief medical and science officer, and you're gonna eat that way, and you're not gonna you're not gonna push the same for all the overweight and diabetic people out there that have to follow your organization's guidelines. And it's sad.
That reminds me of Ansel Keys. Several times people would see him, dining out in steakhouses, right? And his colleagues would bring that up to him. Hey, you're the guy that's saying don't eat steak, eat more carbs. And he would say, literally, and this has happened several times, he would say, cereal is for the little people, right? And by the way, if anyone, and I don't get political on this podcast, but if anyone wants to know who and what Ansel Keys was to the world, think of, who's the Italian now? Fauci. You know how Fauci was like everywhere. Now you don't see Fauci anywhere. Like there are questions to be answered now about the pandemic, but we can't find Fauci. It's like, hey, where's this guy? He was everywhere during the pandemic. Now we can't get him anywhere to answer a question. Ansel Keys was like Fauci. He just bullied his way into this is what we should be doing when the science may not have been that. Now the science is showing, wait, it shouldn't have been the way he said it. All this, and I'm quote unquote settled science, right? They were yelling settled science every night, and now it's like, hey, Fauci, where are you? Ansel Keys was the same way.
Yep.
Did the same sort of thing. So if you want to know what this guy was like, he was a bully. He was a bully, and he didn't even follow his own stuff. And now this guy, Gabbay, what's his name?
Bob Gabbay.
Bob Gabbay, he's not following. And we know why, because Bob Gabby's job is to push drugs and to push sugar. And here's why. Go on, Ryan. Explain to me where money comes from to support the ADA.
Yeah, I mean they make money by donations, and if anyone can look up their donor list, and it's all the drug companies. Their top 15 donors are all these drug companies, and yeah, they got to keep them happy. So of course they're going to mention these very lucrative GLP-1 drugs in their standards of care because they're getting paid by Eli Lilly and the rest of these companies. there's a few food things on their donor list. Splenda's on there, and it's funny on their recipe site. I'm not a huge fan of sweets, and as far as the sugar substitutes go, Splenda is sucralose. It's not going to raise your blood sugar if you use pure sucralose. And if that's getting you off sugar, great. I'd rather you don't sweeten things, but it's better than sugar. The only really low carb things on their recipe site are the ones that Splenda sponsors. And half of those recipes are also with Splenda blend, which is half sugar, half Splenda
Right.
done. And yeah, so it's like they're only promoting this stuff when a company like that is paying them to. Not because diabetics should be cutting out sugar, but because Splenda's paying them for the sponsorship, which is crazy. Yeah. They're not looking out for our health. They're a business, and that's how they get paid.
And that's the whole thing. And by the way, folks, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is not Ryan or Vinnie wearing tinfoil hats. This is you can easily go look this up. This is not propaganda. We're not putting something out. You can go find this, right?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Ryan, where would one go to find that information to see who's sponsoring these companies?
If you just do donors, American Diabetes Association, it's right on their website. You can see that, and yeah, it's right there, and it's all the drug companies.
They're hiding in plain sight. I love the fact that you keep calling this guy out and begging him to be on, and he won't. I'm sure you didn't hear my podcast of this past Monday, but in the vegan world, Dr. Greger, and I use the word doctor lightly because, well, he is a doctor, but he's not a physician. He's not a medical doctor.
I did just listen to this today.
Yeah, so you heard it, right?
I heard you talk about how you were going to talk to him, and then he I guess found out who you are and didn't want to talk then.
Yeah, when we saw that he put it out there and he sent us an email, I told my guy, I went, oh, I'll finally get to talk to one of these guys, right? I've always wanted to talk to him or, Clapper, McDougal, Willett. As a matter of fact, I sent an invite to all of those guys to my last movie, Beyond Impossible. Every one of them gave me a different excuse as to why they couldn't make it. Gregor's was one of my favorite. He first wrote and said, well, you have to meet a certain threshold of, popularity. So we asked what that was, and they gave us these numbers. And I didn't just kind of clear the bar. I cleared the bar by tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Right? We even showed that in the movie. And then we said, okay, I cleared your bar. Would you come on? And he said, I'm sorry, I'm busy that day. I put the email up on the screen in the movie.
Yeah.
And my answer back to him was, what day are you busy? Because we didn't give you a date yet. We were just seeing if you could be on. We were going to work around your schedule.
Yeah.
Right? You're an important person. I do that for all of them. If Nina wants to be in my movie or Gary Taubes or whatever, I don't say we're shooting on this day. I call and go, when can I have you?
Yeah.
We'll need you for X hours, period. That's it. Right. But he wrote back and said, I'm busy on that day. Never gave him a date. But this time I thought, surely, the good doctor would want to be on. But same thing. And the crazy thing is after I do that, people come at me online and go, hey, I know this dude with a YouTube following. He's a vegan. He'll talk to you. It's like, no, I don't want some dude in his mom's basement. I'm sorry. I think I've reached a level of something. I don't know what that level is. Maybe that level is only in my head, right?
Yeah.
But I've reached some level of respect. You don't get to 4 documentaries without reaching a level. I don't want to talk to some guy in his mom's basement with a grease stain down the middle of his t-shirt, right? That's not what I'm doing here.
Yeah, and these doctors, you would think if they truly believe what they preach, then they would want to go on and defend themselves and have a conversation and answer questions. But yeah, they don't. They hide.
And by the way, I've said to every one of them, hey, if you want to come on, the first question you have to cover, well, Gregor has two first questions, so that's not even fair. One question is, the first question for all vegan doctors is, in a world where exogenous vitamins do not exist, meaning before the 1920s, before we came up with the term vitamin and knew about all of the 13 essential vitamins, how would a vegan get B12? They have to successfully answer that question. I don't want to hear about dirt on a carrot, right? That's not an acceptable answer to tell people to eat dirt. You know how much dirt you would have to eat to get the proper amount of B12? It's a lot of fucking dirt. You need a dump truck. You need a pile of dirt right just outside of your kitchen. That's number one. But for Gregor, the second question is, you're not a physician. You say you're a physician. I took that right off of your site. You're a doctor. You have a degree. You have a PhD.
Never practiced.
So let me ask you, you're a doctor. So if you go to medical school and you get your PhD, you're now a PhD, but you have to work, you have to do rounds in a hospital, you have to become an internist, you have to do all this kind.
Yeah.
That's how you get your MD, right?
Well, no, the MD is their degree. I have an ND, a naturopathic doctor.
Right.
That's the degree so yes, he is a doctor. He is not a licensed physician. He's not licensed to practice medicine. He didn't take his board exams. Doesn't have a medical license, so he's not a licensed physician.
So in other words, someone's having a heart attack on the plane. The captain comes on. Is there a doctor on the plane? Can he go administer help?
He has as much license to practice medicine as you do because he doesn't have a license. He doesn't have a medical license. He's not a in practice physician. No.
Right.
He's probably going to stick carrots in their mouth, but
what if he has to do a trach? Can he bore out a carrot and then cut you and then stick the bored out carrot?
Obviously, you know what he looks like too. Like he doesn't look like a fit guy by any means. He was just on tweeting about how keto diets cause bone and muscle loss in those following. And if you look at
I saw that.
You saw that.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, I mean he does not have any muscle definition whatsoever. He's looks like, I guess you could say, a typical vegetarian vegan. He's skinny.
Sean Baker says, I don't trust anyone where their eyes are wider than the outside of their neck. And that's so true for him. It's so true. If you saw him, let's see, I think Neil Barnard is like that, where it's like a little pencil neck.
Yeah.
McDougal is like that, where the face is like out here and there's a little pencil. If you ever watched Family Guy, like Quagmire, like a little pencil neck.
Yeah.
They all have the Quagmire look of, just this big head on this skinny body. And how can and so he comes out with these terms, right? Gregor says eating even one egg a week can cause type 2 diabetes, right? In what world? In what world can that happen? It's actually, folks, it's on his website. You don't have to take my word for it. Go to How Not to Die or whatever is nutritionfacts.org. Yep. That's on that website, right? What say you? One egg a week. If I had one egg a week, can I get type 2 diabetes from that?
I have 10 chickens, so I eat a lot of eggs. And, I have type 1 diabetes. I am not insulin resistant. I use very, very low amounts of insulin. So it means I'm insulin sensitive. And I eat, probably 4 or 5 eggs a day. So
my average is between 4 and 6. So you and I eat the same number of eggs per day. I have my blood sugar, if I eat enough protein, it'll see 100.
Have you ever done a fasting insulin? I bet you're really low.
Yeah, it's got to be really. Anytime I don't wear a thing.
Yeah.
Pointing to my tricep. I don't have a CGM.
Yeah.
But I'm old school. I have a Precision 2, which does sugar and,
just out of curiosity, on your next blood work, see if you can get a fasting insulin just for bragging rights. I'm sure it's very, very low.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think I've done it before, but I don't want to yell out a number because I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And I can't pull it up right now because I'm too dumb to pull shit up.
Eh,
But my fasting insulin is always in check. Here's what they're always telling me when I go and get my blood work once a year, the big one. I do the big one once a year.
Yep.
My triglycerides never see 50.
Mm.
They're 30, 35, 40, somewhere, and depending on the day. They tell me that my LDL to HDL ratio is as perfect as a human being can get.
Nice.
Of course, my blood sugar, because you fast from the night before, is always like 78,
Yeah.
right? Um, this kind of thing. And then at the end, they'll say, "Oh, your cholesterol's a little high, but we'll keep an eye on that." And I'll go, "Yeah, but look at my calcium score. What are we worried about? I'm a
Yeah.
61-year-old man with a zero. What are we doing? What are we doing here?" Right? So that's what we're dealing with, right? It's, but according to Gregor, that I eat 4 to 6 a day, eggs. Today, I think I had 7 or 8
I
because,
can easily do that. Yeah.
yeah, because I boil a bunch of extra ones, and I was doing a lot of yard work. And right before I did this podcast, I was a little peckish. So I grabbed another 2 eggs, peeled them, and ate them, and came in here.
Yeah.
Slammed an espresso, and here we are.
It's like the perfect food.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. But according to Gregor, one a week, that would be 52 a year, can cause type 2. You and I clear 52 before the 10th week of the year. Think about that, right? He's saying 52 a year, type 2 diabetes. I cannot get any other doctor to corroborate that. So I tried to look up to see where he got that information from. He took 2 or 3 really, really weak epidemiological studies
Mm.
that he didn't take into account anything else. The
Yeah.
fact that these people might have been smoking, the fact that these people might have been sedentary, nothing. We don't know anything else they were eating except eggs appeared in there. So you see, they can just extrapolate anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and these the epidemiological studies like this always do that, and then, then unfortunately you have people who are just generally healthy avoiding eggs because they hear things like this, and they're screwing up these studies because they call it the healthy user bias, and that's these healthy people avoid some of these healthy foods because they just hear of these potentials um, and then the people following kind of the standard American diet, not doing anything with their diet, but also, maybe they smoke, maybe they, drink too much, maybe they don't go to the doctor, and they also eat eggs, and they're when surveyed, that's what these epidemiological studies are picking up on.
Look, I have a friend who's an epidemiologist. That's what he does for a living. He's
Yeah.
like one of the top people, and he was doing those studies during COVID. And we were having dinner about 2 weeks ago. And I said to him, I said, explain this to me, riddle me this. When COVID first came out, they told us, oh, if you get a package, leave it outside. The sun might be able to kill it. Don't bring, like a UPS or anything in your house. Spray it down, do all this stuff. And, they were talking about hospitals overflowing, and California had a ship offshore, and, they were turning into a hospital. And, they were talking about body bags in New York and all this kind of stuff. He goes, yeah. I said, I know people who have had COVID now 6 times, right? And they'll go, oh yeah, I got COVID again. My daughter's had COVID at least 5, 6 times.
I still have never gotten COVID.
Knock on wood, I haven't gotten it either.
I've tested positive for it, but I never had any symptoms or anything.
Serena got it 2 years ago in England, right? And we were in a house with 17. I know it sounds weird, but her sister lives in a really big house. 17 other family members in the house. One person tested positive for COVID. That was Serena.
Hmm.
I was in bed with Serena every night. We then decided to go stay at her brother's little hut, kind of like a little hunting cabin, because we didn't want to go stay with her elderly mother who had cancer. because she had COVID. This is still during the COVID protocol. So
Mm.
my feeling was, okay, Serena has it. We're huddled up in this little house. The only heat is a fireplace. It was kind of romantic, except she had COVID. And I had the common cold. We kept swabbing and testing every day. She kept testing positive. I had a sore throat, a common cold. We went out, it was raining and cold. We went out and went for a jog every day. And I kept saying to Serena, you think, I mean, I don't want you to end up on a ventilator. I mean, are you okay? She was like, I feel fine.
Yeah.
But she felt fine. She was positive for COVID and felt fine. I felt worse with the common cold.
Mm.
Right. So it was like this weird thing of, I was asking this guy, everyone was supposed to be dying from this 2 or 3 years ago. Why is it that my daughter calls me every week? Oh yeah, I got COVID again.
Huh.
And no one's dying. No one's on a respirator. No one's dying.
Yeah.
What is it? Right. That's what I want to. And he said, well, it's mutating and it's not as dangerous anymore. But you never hear of anyone dying anymore
Yeah.
at all. Right? They were talking body bags, and
Yeah.
now they're not talking about anything. It's like, yeah, it's COVID.
It's crazy. And I don't understand. I don't. And now, the problem is nobody's going to trust if something really bad comes around, no one's going to trust the
Yeah.
government anymore, that they might have a serious risk because of this.
Oh, it's Chicken Little. Are you old enough to know Chicken Little?
Yeah. Yeah.
The sky's falling. The sky's
Yeah.
falling. You can't keep yelling the sky's falling. At some point, no one is like, yeah, the sky's falling again. We're not. We're good, right? And I think that you and I fall into that category sometimes because we're going, hey, look, we have a solution over here. Type ones, Ryan has a solution. Morbidly obese people, Vinnie has a solution. But then we get called crazy for our solutions, which makes you not want to do any of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what does it look like for you in the next year? We're coming up on New Year's. This will probably come out right around New Year's.
Things are good for me. I'm doing great here in Connecticut. I get to see my patients at my practice. I'm in Fairfield, Connecticut. I do see patients remotely too. And but I'm busy with that. About half of my patients are diabetic. The other half are kind of, you name it, chronic ailments that people are equally frustrated with. But then, yeah, the new year's looking great for me. I started practicing in 2017 and just been growing and growing since then.
Tell people where they can find you, Ryan. And by the way, can they book something online if they
Yep.
want to talk to you?
Yeah, drattar.com, DRATTAR.com. And yeah, if you're following Vinny's low carb approach and you're a type 2 diabetic and you're losing weight, great. If you're a type 1 diabetic, there's a lot more involved in managing diabetes than with type 2 diabetes. Yeah, look me up, go to my website. I follow Dr. Bernstein's method too, and I have been doing this for over a decade myself with the results that I mentioned before, under 5 A1C, and my patients get those same results too. So happy to help anyone across the country too.
Yeah, and Dr. Bernstein's been on this show, folks. If you have the old episodes of this show, you can.
I didn't realize that. I got to look that up.
Oh yeah. He's probably in the first 300 or 400 shows.
Ah,
Yeah, early on, very early on, he came on. Yeah, people always go, "Hey, you ever heard of this person?" I say, "Yeah, they've all been on the show."
huh,
I don't come by this knowledge. I'm not smart. I come by this knowledge because I've had smart people in this show. So that's just the way we do it. Um, we're going to have everything about Dr. Attar in the notes so that you guys can find him if you want to. And, I could have gone into a whole different conversation when you said you're below 5.0 on A1Cs. That's the
yep.
other thing about the GLP-1s, right? They'll say, hey, you can get your A1Cs right under, 7 if you take Ozempic. And I'm sitting there yelling at the television going, you're still diabetic. You're taking a drug for diabetes and it keeps you perfectly sick.
Yeah.
Right?
Seek normal and non-diabetic blood sugars and A1Cs. That should be it. That should be everyone's goal.
Yeah. And anyone, if you're type 2, anyone can do it. If you're type 2. If you're type 1, look, Ryan is over there. He's type 1 and he's below 5.0 A1Cs. So it can be done. It can
100%.
be done. Folks, you know what to do. We all go shopping on Amazon. Before you go to Amazon, go to VinnieTortorich.com, click through the banner, puts a little coal on the fire, gets my train down the track. We're able to keep this show free for a gazillion years in a row. This show is coming out right around the beginning of the year, maybe right before that. We will open up for the VIP again. If you guys want to be in a VIP group, we're going to open that up sometime in January where you guys can sign up for that again. Sign-ups are closed right now. As a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to, tonight on the 15th, I'm recording the first one of those. So if you want to do that, it's to keep yourself accountable. We have a lot of tools there. You guys can do all of that. Also, rate and review this show. Rate and review. Now, if you hate me and you're a hate listener, don't rate or review. But if you love us and you want to give us 5 stars, go and do that. Ryan,
And watch all Vinnie's documentaries over again because I think they're great and I tell everyone about them.
thank you, sir. You're not doing a podcast or anything at this point, are you?
I'm gonna get something going in the near future.
Let me know when you do. We'll bring you back on so that you can promote it.
Awesome.
You know, that kind of thing. All right, folks. On behalf of Dr. Ryan Attar, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with enthusiasm.